You glide between tables on sore feet, balancing another tray of vintage wine for creatures who pretend to be men. The air smells like cedar wood, secrets, and money too old to question. You've worked the Argent Room long enough to know that nothing here is truly human. Not the guests, not the hush that falls before they speak, not the way the room holds its breath when someone important walks in. You were hired for your silence, not your service. Just a waitress, just a girl in black slacks and a faded uniform shirt pressed one too many times. Someone who never makes a sound unless asked. But tonight, something changes. You feel it before he enters. Kyle Raventhorn. He doesn't belong to this world. He owns it. You don't need to be told who he is. Every instinct in your body goes still the moment his boots cross the marble threshold. The restaurant exhales like prey in the presence of a predator who chooses, for now, not to strike. And yet, you don't look away. Not even when his gaze meets yours, not even when the air fractures with gunfire and silver screams across the room. You move, faster than thought, faster than fear. The tray flies from your hands, a scream chokes behind your ribs, and then, fire. White hot, your chest, everything burns, you're falling. But you never hit the ground, because he's there. The Alpha King catches you like you matter, like you're not just a girl with cracked soles and a Tua lip balm in your apron pocket. His arms are iron, his voice a snarl cut in velvet. Don't touch her. You feel your blood soaking through your shirt, feel the cold bite of the silver bullet that should be killing you. That should already have killed you. But it hasn't. The room explodes into motion. Men shift. Magic coils around the walls. You hear the ancient phrase as it's spoken aloud, shaking the floor. Alpha law is invoked. No one leaves. No one speaks above a whisper. And no one dares touch you, because somehow, impossibly, you're still breathing, and the Alpha King won't let you go. You don't hear the shot. You feel it, a pulse through your chest, violent and wrong, like the world cracking open inside you. 1 second you're balancing the tray, 3 flutes of Dom Perignon and a decanter older than your rent, and the next, there's a soundless impact that knocks the breath from your lungs and the tray from your hands. You don't remember falling, only the cold. Marble kisses your spine, or it would have if you'd hit the floor. But you don't. There are arms around you, strong, unyielding, smelling of rain-soaked pine and fury. His arms, Kyle Raventhorn. Your head rolls against his chest. His heart beats like thunder beneath your cheek. His hand cradles the back of your neck like your glass he doesn't know how to set down. The room sways around you in a mess of golden light and frozen stares. You can't breathe. Or maybe you're breathing too much. Everything hurts and everything feels distant. Blood spills from your chest, warm and fast and terrifying. You can feel it in the way his suit darkens beneath your shoulder. He's speaking, but the words are distant. Elara, how does he know your name? Elara, stay with me. You try to answer. Try to form a word. Your throat is wet. Your lips feel slow. There's a crackle of magic in the air, sharp like ozone before a storm. Chaos ripples through the Argent Room. You hear chairs scraping, someone yelling in a voice that's too smooth to be human. Wolves, somewhere in the crowd, begin to shift. The walls vibrate with magic trying to hold itself together, but it's Kyle's voice that cuts through the noise. Lock it down. And then silence, like the world is holding its breath. By Alpha law, this room is sealed. The air changes. You feel it in your bones. The Argent Room becomes something ancient, something sacred and lethal, a courtroom and a battlefield all at once. You've heard whispers about Alpha law in passing, never invoked, never real, until now. A heavy thud hits the doors. The steel plates slide into place. Magic hums against the edges of your consciousness, tasting metallic in the back of your throat. A werewolf lockdown. No one in, no one out. This was supposed to be neutral ground. Now it's a war zone. You shift in his arms, gasping. The pain rips through you like a scream. Silver. You know what it is now? You've never touched it, never seen it used, but your body knows. It burns, and it doesn't stop. You choke. Didn't think, just moved. Kael's eyes are glowing now. Gold shot through with something darker, something ancient. The Alpha looks down at you like you've just broken a rule no one expected you to understand. You took a bullet meant for me. The way he says it, like he can't decide if he's furious or something worse. Afraid. You try to speak, but your body fails you again. Another voice joins in, a blur of motion. Mira, the healer, kneels beside you. Her hands hover over your chest, glowing faint green with pack magic. She should be dead, Mira whispers. She's not, Kael says. No, but the silver. It's not spreading. Mira peels back your blood-soaked shirt. You don't look. You can't. The sound she makes is quiet and awed. This wound should have gone straight through her heart. It missed by a breath. She presses her hands gently over the torn skin. You scream through clenched teeth. But that's not what's strange. What is? Kael's voice is ice. She's fighting it, Mira says. The silver. It's reacting to her blood, but it's not winning. You blink up at the ceiling, chandeliers casting warped stars across your vision. You don't understand. You're just a waitress, just a girl who's worked here for months, keeping her head down, earning tips, pretending not to see what others don't hide very well. You're not supposed to survive this, but you are, and that's the problem. She's not Pack, Mira says. But she's not. Not. What does that mean? Kael snaps. Mira swallows. I don't know. He holds you tighter, like the weight of you might anchor him to something real. You don't think he notices how his hand shakes where it touches your hair. Around you, the crowd simmers. Someone snarls, another growls back. You hear the snap of a bone, a half-shift being restrained. Power presses in from all sides, fangs just beneath the surface, claws itching to tear something open. They're all watching you, not because of what you did, but because you lived. Someone whispers, she's not human. Someone else says, that girl shouldn't exist. And suddenly, you feel it, the fear, not your own, but theirs. You've become a breach in their order, a glitch in the law. If a human can survive silver, what else can she survive? What else is she? You try to lift your hand. Kael catches it, cradling it like it matters. I felt you, you whisper. His gaze snaps back to yours. Before you walked in, I felt you. Something darkens in his eyes. Recognition, not confusion. You want to ask what that means. You don't get the chance. The doors rattle again, this time from the outside. They're coming, someone murmurs. Varek won't let this go. The name hits the air like poison. Kael doesn't look away from you. His voice is soft and low now, just for you. You changed everything. You try to laugh. It comes out like a choke. Didn't mean to. His jaw tenses. He brushes a lock of blood-stuck hair from your forehead with surprising gentleness. You matter now, Elara Wynn, whether you want to or not. And as your vision finally dims, fading beneath pain and magic and the weight of too many stares, you feel the truth in his words. You were just a waitress. Now you're something else. And the wolves of New York are howling, because the Alpha King is holding something in his arms that shouldn't exist, and he's not letting go. You wake to darkness, not the comforting kind, but the thick, still kind that presses against your skin like water. The air smells like antiseptic and sage. There's a hum beneath the silence, low and vibrating, like power holding its breath. You're alive. That shouldn't be possible. Not after what happened, not after the silver. You blink, the ceiling above you blurry and unfamiliar. Exposed brick, a single bulb hanging from a chain. Somewhere to your right, glass clinks, soft, careful, deliberate. The sound of someone trying not to wake you. Your chest aches, a deep, sharp kind of ache, like something tore through muscle and bone and left questions behind. You try to shift, but your limbs feel heavy, pinned by gravity, or something more. A presence moves closer, not footsteps, just heat, like a shadow with weight. You don't need to see him to know it's him. Kyle. You turn your head slowly. He's seated in the corner, his body still, but not relaxed, a king in exile, a weapon waiting to be unsheathed. He's watching you. He hasn't looked away since you opened your eyes. You're awake. His voice is rougher now, lower, as if speaking too loud might break something in the room. You try to speak. It comes out as a rasp. Where? Safe house, he says. Brooklyn, off-grid, shielded. No one outside the pack knows you're here. You let your eyes close again for a moment, just to breathe. Everything feels like it's humming too loud. Your pulse, the air, him. How long? You ask. 2 days. You swallow. I should be dead. You're not. He says it like a fact. Not relief, not confusion, just truth. But there's something in his eyes, beneath the gold and the silence, that looks too much like fear for your comfort. You never left, you whisper. He doesn't answer, doesn't need to. You shift again, just slightly, and hiss as fire blooms under your ribs. Kyle is there in an instant, beside the bed, one hand steadying your shoulder, the other hovering like he wants to touch you but doesn't know if he should. You shouldn't move, he says. I'm not broken. His jaw flexes. You almost were. The door creaks open before you can respond. Mira steps in. The pack healer, hair pulled into a messy braid. Sleeves rolled to her elbows. She carries a small metal tray with vials and herbs that smell like pine and lightning. She stops short when she sees you awake. Well, damn, she mutters. She really is still alive. Kyle growls low under his breath. Mira rolls her eyes. It's not doubt, Alpha. It's awe. She sets the tray down and moves to your side. Her hands are warm, her magic warmer. Pain? She asks. You nod. She presses her palms gently to your sternum, and the air around you pulses. You feel her energy searching, assessing, stitching. You shouldn't be here, she murmurs, mostly to herself. Silver doesn't just burn. It corrupts. It lingers. It poisons. But you, she glances up at Kyle. There's no infection, no rejection. It's like her blood absorbed the silver and neutralized it. That's not possible, Kyle says. But his voice is softer now, like he's already accepted the impossible and just doesn't like it. Mira pulls back. Her hands shake slightly. She's not human. You feel your stomach twist. I am, you say. But even you don't believe it. Kyle stands at the foot of the bed now, arms crossed over his chest like a man holding himself together. You felt something, didn't you? He asks. You hesitate. When I walked into the Argent room. You nod, slowly. A pull, you whisper, like gravity shifted. He exhales through his nose. I felt it too. You stare at him, unsure what's more terrifying, what you're becoming or what that means to him. This doesn't make sense, you say. No, Mira agrees. But it's happening. Kyle moves closer again, his presence a storm cloud at your bedside. We need to test your blood, Mira says. With your permission. You nod. Mira leaves to prepare the kit. The silence she leaves behind stretches between you and Kyle like a wire strung too tight. Why did you do it? He asks quietly. You blink. Do what? Take the bullet. You laugh, then wince. I didn't think. I just moved. He watches you for a long moment. "No one's ever done that for me," he says. You look away. "Then you need better people." "I have them," he says. "Now." The room is too quiet after that. Mira returns, draws the sample. You barely feel it. You're too busy trying to understand the way Kael looks at you now. Not like a waitress, not like a woman who bled for him. Like a mystery he's already claimed as his. "I'll run this through every scanner we've got," Mira says. "But if the council catches wind..." "They won't," Kael snaps. "She's not just a girl anymore," Mira warns. "She's a symbol, a threat. You know what that means." Kael's voice is a growl. "Let them come." And suddenly, you understand. This isn't over. You're not healed. You're not safe. You're the spark in a powder keg that's been waiting for a reason to explode, and Kael Raventhorn, the Alpha King, is standing between you and the fire. Not because he has to, because he wants to. Because something changed in that moment when you fell into his arms. And now the entire supernatural underworld is going to feel it. The blood on the microscope slide shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light. Kael stood behind Mira, arms folded, jaw tense, the weight of what he was seeing pressing against the cage of his ribs like it wanted out. It shouldn't look like that. Silver was supposed to scorch. Burn. Destroy. Not dissolve, not blend. But Alara's blood had absorbed the silver the way fire devoured air, completely, without resistance, without injury. No human blood had ever done that. Mira adjusted the lens, her face a mask of clinical disbelief. "No coagulation," she murmured. "No cellular breakdown, no elemental rejection." Kael's voice was low. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, straightening, "she's not human. Not fully. Maybe not at all." That was what he feared, and exactly what he needed to hear. But Kael didn't move. He just stared at the smear of crimson beneath the glass like it held a map he hadn't been taught to read. Alara's blood was wrong, and wrong was dangerous, not just for her, for him, for all of them. "I need her background," he said. "Everything." Mira looked over her shoulder. "You already tried. Don't pretend you didn't run her name the second she passed out in your arms." Kael didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. He had every PAC network, every council archive, every rogue informant in 3 boroughs combing through Alara Wynn's past. And what he found was too clean, too blank. An orphan raised in foster care, multiple group homes, average grades, a short list of low-wage jobs, no criminal record, no supernatural affiliations, no paper trail worth chasing, like someone had wiped her or hidden her. Mira turned back to her samples. "You said she moved faster than thought, that she took the shot like it was instinct." "It was." Mira raised an eyebrow. "She doesn't feel like a sleeper. Too raw, too unaware." "She's not faking," Kael said. "Whatever she is, she doesn't know it yet." That made it worse. Mira didn't say what they were both thinking, that ignorance didn't protect her from what she'd become, or from what others would do to her once they found out. Kael's phone buzzed, slicing through the silence. A single word lit up the encrypted screen. "Council." His breath stilled in his chest. For a moment, the world narrowed down to the cold hum of medical equipment and the echo of dread clawing up his spine. They knew. He didn't respond. Not yet. Not until he knew what they wanted and what they feared. He left the clinic without a word, boots hitting wet pavement as Brooklyn's early dusk settled over the city like smoke. His driver waited, eyes down, scent nervous. Kael slid into the back seat of the black SUV, jaw clenched, pulse coiled. The council didn't summon lightly. They ruled in silence and blood, kept peace through power and politics so old they smelled like stone. Kael had fought to keep his territory out of their grip. But this was different. Ilara was different. And now, she was his. He didn't mean to think of her that way, but he did. Her scent was already written across his senses like a signature, subtle and electric. Not just human, not just other. Something ancient his instincts couldn't place, but refused to forget. She'd moved Lar like a wolf, faster than adrenaline, braver than reason. She'd thrown herself into death for him. The image haunted him, her body folding as the silver hit, the sound of her breath leaving, her blood on his hands. Kyle closed his eyes. No human should have survived. And yet, Ilara had looked up at him through the pain with something that didn't belong to prey. Trust, not fear. And that terrified him more than anything the council could do. Back at the safe house, she was still sleeping. Mira had sedated her gently, just enough to slow the rush of whatever was inside her, trying to wake up. The moment her eyes opened again, questions would come, more than he had answers for, but Kyle couldn't wait. He stepped into his private study, secure and warded, and placed a call to the one person who might know what the council would never admit. Elder Thalos. The old wolf answered without greeting, voice like gravel dragged across ice. "You've waited too long." Kyle didn't flinch. "What do you know?" "You felt it already. In her blood. In your bond." "There is no bond." "Don't lie, boy." The title stung. Kyle had killed for less. But Thalos was one of the few who remembered the wars. The bloodlines. The names erased by time and betrayal. "She survived Silver," Kyle said. "Her blood dissolved it." A long silence. Then it's true. The bloodline wasn't lost, only hidden. Kyle's pulse hitched. "Which bloodline?" But the call ended. Dead silence. No signal. Wards breaking. Kyle cursed, smashing the phone into the wall. The screen cracked like ice. He'd gotten what he needed. Not a name, but a truth. Ilara wasn't random. She was legacy, and someone had buried that fact so deep it had almost stayed forgotten, but not anymore. Back in the clinic, Mira stood over Ilara's sleeping form, her brows knit in thought. Kyle re-entered quietly, watching the rise and fall of Ilara's breath. She looked too peaceful, too soft to carry the weight of centuries, but she had taken a silver bullet to the heart and lived. Mira glanced over. "If the council calls her in, she won't survive it." Kyle's voice was ice. "They won't touch her." Mira raised a brow. "You can't protect her from the law." "I'm not planning to." "Then what are you planning?" He didn't answer. Because he didn't know, only this. If Ilara was who he feared she might be, then everything in the city would shift. The council, the packs, the balance of power, and Kyle would burn the entire system to the ground before he let them take her from him. The girl who didn't die. The waitress who bled silver. The woman who might just undo everything, including him. The challenge came wrapped in blood, not ink, not words. Blood, smeared across vellum from an ancient wolf's hide, sealed with a sigil that hadn't been invoked in over a century, delivered by a trembling courier who refused to speak Kyle's name aloud. He dropped the message at the Brooklyn safe house threshold and ran. Smart. Kyle didn't touch it right away. He stared at it like it might bite back. Because in a way, it had. The seal belonged to Varric Bloodhowl, rival alpha, savage, old pack blood, the kind who didn't believe in peace unless it came on his terms. He was chaos draped in tradition, and the kind of brute the council tolerated only because he reminded them of what unchecked power looked like. He'd always wanted the East, always wanted Kyle's seat. Now he had his excuse. Kyle broke the seal. The message was short. "You've broken the law. Surrender your crown. Name your second, or I'll take the city myself. One moon." At the bottom, a crude symbol painted in crimson, a bullet crossed by claw marks. It wasn't just a challenge, it was war bait. Kael crushed the vellum in his fist. Outside, wolves howled in the distance. Not his pack. A warning. Varric had already arrived. Brooklyn was no longer neutral ground. Mira watched him from the hallway, arms folded, gaze sharp. "They'll call it tradition," she said. "They'll call it cowardice if I don't answer." "Varric's not here for the city," she said. "He's here for her." Kael's silence was the only confirmation she needed. Elara. She was still resting, her breathing shallow, her body slowly stitching itself back together from the impossible. Kael had felt the weight of her presence grow every hour, like a tether tightening around his ribs. The council had remained silent since their summons. Too silent, waiting, watching, and Varric had used their pause to draw blood first. Mira spoke again, quieter now. "She's more than they expected. She always was. You don't have to fight him. Not like this." Kael looked at her, something dark moving behind his eyes. He called her an aberration. "She is. She's mine." Mira exhaled slowly, her mouth set in a grim line. "Then you'll have to remind them what that means." By nightfall, the pack compound burned with anticipation, wolves pacing on the edges of the city, waiting for the Alpha King's word. Not every pack in the northeast swore by Kael's rule. Some had bent reluctantly, others only in name. And Varric had been waiting for years, biding time, feeding doubts, whispering old promises to wolves who missed blood more than order. Now, with Elara's survival out in the open, he had the perfect weapon. She shouldn't exist. That would be Varric's opening line. Not law, not legacy. Fear. Fear wrapped in prophecy, sealed with centuries of superstition. Kael stood before the inner council, his own, the ones still loyal. Rowan Blackmore at his right. Mira beside him, a ring of silent wolves formed behind them in the warehouse-turned hall, their eyes glowing faintly in the low light. "He calls for blood under the full moon," Rowan said, voice tight. "Old rules. Death rules." Kael nodded once. "He's betting you won't invoke Alpha Law again, that you'll avoid the public challenge." "I won't," Mira spoke. "If you fight him, every rival pack will come crawling out of their burrows to watch. And if you lose, I don't lose." A pause. Then Rowan offered the only truth no one had yet dared say aloud. "If she's the reason he's coming, Kael, you could give her up." The silence that followed was brutal. Kael's eyes lifted, steel and ice. Rowan didn't flinch. "Not because you're weak. Because it might buy us time, space, strategy." Kael turned his head just slightly. "Do you remember what he did to the Blood Pine Pack?" Rowan nodded. "Do you remember the screams?" Another nod. Kael's voice dropped. "Then don't ever suggest handing over what's mine again." A beat of breath, then Rowan bowed his head. "Understood." Kael stepped into the center of the room. His presence filled it without effort, the air stretching taut around him, bending to the pressure of his command. "She survived Silver," he said. "That's not aberration. That's power. We don't run from power." Some of the younger wolves stirred. "She is not weakness," Kael continued. "She is not prey. She is the future." A low growl echoed from the shadows, deep and dangerous, and from the shadows, a shape stepped forward. Not from Kael's pack. A scout, young. Bloodhowl's scent still clinging to his coat. He bowed, but just barely. "Alpha Varric invites you to answer the challenge. Full moon, 1 week, public ground, witnessed." Kael's canines flashed. "You bring threats into my den," he said. The scout swallowed. "Just a message." Kael stepped forward once. That was all it took. The room pulsed with dominance. The scout's legs buckled before he could catch himself. Tell him, Kyle said, voice razor-sharp. The Alpha King doesn't kneel. He doesn't surrender, and when I rip out his throat, I'll make sure the council watches. The scout scrambled to his feet and ran. Kyle turned to the others. Prepare the city! That night, he returned to the safe house. She was awake, barely. Her eyes fluttered open, the dull glow of moonlight brushing her skin. She looked like a ghost carved from memory, but she was real. He knelt beside her bed. You're safe, he said. Alara's lips parted, dry. You're lying. A pause, then softly, I am. Her eyes flicked to his face. What happened? A rival wants my crown. Because of me. Yes. Silence fell between them. Alara tried to sit, but the pain pulled her back down. Kyle reached to steady her, and this time she didn't flinch. I didn't mean for this, she whispered. I know. But I'm still a problem. Kyle's gaze held hers, unreadable. You're not a problem, Alara. You're a question none of them want to answer. Her breath shook. Are you going to fight him? Yes. You could lose. I won't. You're not invincible, she whispered. No, he agreed. But I'm furious. Another beat. Alara's voice was quiet. Why are you doing this? And that, he didn't answer. Not fully. Because if he told her the truth, she'd never sleep again. That she was no longer a waitress. She was prophecy, and the Alpha King never bows, except maybe to her. Brooklyn wasn't known for castles, but Kyle found a way. The building didn't look like much from the street. An old church converted into a private residence, stained glass sealed behind reinforced glass, weather-worn stone wrapped in ivy and time. But inside, it breathed power. High arches, sound-proofed walls, thick shadows broken only by candlelight, and the soft hum of security wards woven into every brick. It was less a home than a fortress dressed in sacred ruin. He moved her there 2 nights after the challenge was issued. No more clinic. No more safe house. This place was different. Too quiet, too close, too his. Alara didn't remember the drive, only the smell of rain and pine, Kyle's voice low in her ear as he told her to sleep. When she woke, the sheets were silk, and the walls whispered nothing but silence. No other wolves, no windows that opened, just her, Kyle, and the weight of something unspoken pressing between them. The room had no locks, but it might as well have. He checked on her constantly. Didn't knock, didn't ask. He hovered like a storm cloud, pacing just outside her reach, eyes sharp, scent unreadable. When she moved, he followed. When she winced, he tensed. When she asked him for space, he left, only to stand just outside the door, a shadow on the other side of the stone. At first, she told herself it was protection, that she was a political target now, that he was the Alpha King and this was strategy. But strategy didn't explain the way his eyes changed when she stepped too close. It didn't explain the heat in his voice when he asked her how she felt, like the answer might unmake him. It didn't explain the way her name sounded on his tongue. Too careful, too reverent, like a secret he was afraid to speak too loud. And it sure as hell didn't explain why her pulse stuttered every time he said it. Alara stood at the balcony one night, staring out at a courtyard cloaked in mist, wrapped in vines and stillness. Her breath fogged the glass. She felt him before she heard him. Why here? She asked, not turning. Kyle's voice came from behind her, rough with something he didn't name. Because no one gets in without bleeding for it. She turned then. His shirt was half unbuttoned. Sleeves rolled to his forearms, scars old and silver lacing the skin like faded runes. He didn't try to hide them, didn't seem to notice the way her gaze lingered. I'm not your prisoner, she said. No. Then why does this feel like a cage? He didn't flinch. Because you're not safe. Because I'm not safe, or because I'm not safe to others? He stepped closer, and the air shifted, thickened. You don't know what's inside you, he said. Neither do you. Kyle jaw ticked. I know enough. She folded her arms. So tell me. He stared at her like she was a storm he couldn't predict, like her every breath cracked open something inside him. You took a silver bullet meant for me, he said, and lived. You've said that. No, he said. You lived. You healed. Your blood devoured the silver. Your pulse steadied before mine did. And when I touched you... He stopped. When he looked at her again, it wasn't like she was a threat. It was like she was his. I've seen war, he said. I've seen bloodlines that could bend magic. Old wolves with fire in their bones. But you, his voice dropped. You changed something in me, Alara. The second you fell into my arms. Her mouth was dry. You don't even know what I am. His eyes glowed faintly gold in the half-light. I don't care. The words hung between them like a snare. Her heart kicked, fast, loud, and then she stepped forward, closer than she had before, and looked up into the face of the Alpha King. Am I a threat to your throne? She asked. No. To your people? No. Her voice was quieter now. Then what am I? Kyle didn't answer with words. He reached out, slow, careful, and brushed the backs of his fingers down her jaw. She felt the restraint in that touch, the violence buried beneath the tenderness, the way he held himself together like he was built from wire and teeth and centuries of obedience. You're not mine, he said softly, but I want you to be. The room tilted, her breath caught, not because of what he said, but because she wanted it too, and she didn't know when that had happened. Maybe it started the moment he caught her. Or maybe before, when she first felt the air shift at the Argent room and turned, knowing without knowing that the man in the suit was not a man at all. Is this instinct? She whispered. Some wolf thing? Maybe. And if it's not? Kyle stepped even closer, close enough that her skin buzzed. His gaze dropped to her lips, lingered, then found her eyes again. Then I'm in worse trouble than I thought. Alara didn't move, didn't breathe. Because in that moment, nothing else existed. Not the council, not the challenge, not the blood on the vellum or the wolves gathering in the dark. Just him and the terrifying, impossible truth that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about protection anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe Kyle Raventhorn didn't want to guard her. Maybe he wanted to claim her. The blood didn't lie. Mira stared at the screen like it might change if she blinked. The results had run 3 times now. Same answer, same impossible data. Dormant markers, unmistakable. Wolf, but not like any bloodline currently recognized by the Council. Not Nightclaw, not Bloodhowl, not Duskfang or any of the 13 packs still accounted for on official scrolls. This signature was buried, fragmented, older. Ghost DNA woven through Alara's genome like a melody just out of reach. Markers that looked faded at first glance, muted by generations of silence, but still alive, still pulsing. Mira sat back slowly, the hum of the lab machines barely louder than her own breath. She should have called Kyle immediately, but she didn't, because this wasn't just rare. This was protected, which meant it had been hidden, on purpose. She pulled up another screen, overlaying Alara's blood with the last known sample from a confirmed royal line. Pre-schism. It was locked, archived decades ago when the old orders were dissolved. Mira hadn't touched it since medical school. Now the 2 patterns lit up side by side. A match. Faint. Incomplete. But enough. Alara Wynne wasn't just a girl who'd gotten in the way of a bullet. She was legacy. And if the Council realized that first, they wouldn't hesitate. They'd take her, weaponize her, or erase her. There was no middle. Kyle knew something was wrong the second Mira called him back to the lab. Her voice was tight, professional, too measured. He walked in fast, without waiting for an explanation. Mira didn't greet him, just turned the screen. He read the data in silence, then again, and once more. When he spoke, his voice was low, controlled. How long have you known? Since last night. You tested again. 3 times. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once. The walls of the room felt closer now, like they were listening. What line? He asked. Mira hesitated. It's fragmented, but the base structure, I think it's Thornblood. Kyle stopped moving. That name didn't belong to the present. It belonged to ruin. Thornblood was erased, he said. Not erased, she corrected. Suppressed. He turned toward her. No one's used that name in over 200 years. They were the first to oppose the council. They were annihilated. Maybe not all of them. He stared at the screen again. Elara Wynne, the girl with no past, no family, no records older than 18. Of course not. Someone had buried her bloodline so deeply even the wolves forgot how to trace it. But the body remembered. The instincts, the resistance to silver, the way she moved without hesitation, like something inside her had recognized Kyle before her mind caught up. Not human, not fully, and not just wolf, royal, ancient, endangered. He should have felt victorious. The discovery was monumental. It rewrote everything. Instead, he felt cold. Because this kind of truth didn't stay hidden long, and if the wrong ears heard it first, Elara's blood would become a banner or a battlefield. She doesn't know, he said. She suspects. She thinks she's dangerous. She is. Kyle's eyes lifted sharply. Mira held his gaze. Anything this powerful draws predators, she said, especially if it doesn't know how to protect itself. He didn't argue, because she was right, and yet the idea of anyone touching Elara with harm in mind made something primal curl inside him. I need to speak with her, he said, carefully. He didn't answer. He was already walking out the door. She was in the upstairs library, curled in the window seat with one of the old books she'd pulled from the shelves, spine cracked, title faded. The light spilled over her skin in soft gold, dust motes dancing in the glow. She didn't look like prophecy. She looked like a woman trying to hold herself together with borrowed pages and silence. Kyle leaned in the doorway for a moment before speaking. I need to tell you something. She looked up. He stepped inside, closing the distance slowly. She watched him carefully, like she already knew this wasn't going to be simple. Your blood, he said. It's not normal. Yeah, she said dryly. Figured that out after the bullet. It's not just resistant, it's coded. Elara blinked. Coded. Markers, he said. DNA fragments, dormant traits, ones we haven't seen in centuries. Her breath caught. You ran tests on me? I had to know what saved you. She didn't argue. She just waited, and he gave her the truth. You're not human, Elara. At least not fully. You carry a bloodline we thought was lost. To who? He hesitated. She rose slowly from the window seat. Kyle, she said, voice calm but sharp. To who? Thornblood, he said. The word meant nothing to her, yet something flickered across her face, something almost familiar. Is that supposed to mean something? It was one of the original bloodlines. Before the council ruled, before the schism, they were powerful, respected, and when they opposed the council's consolidation of power, they were hunted, wiped out. Not wiped out, she echoed. Suppressed. He nodded. So what does that make me? She asked. A loophole? A symbol? It makes you dangerous. To who? Everyone. She exhaled slowly, arms wrapping around herself. I don't want this. I know. I didn't ask for it. No one does. She looked at him then, and he saw it, the fear. Not of him, not of her blood, of what this meant, of being seen, of being used. And Kyle hated the council more in that moment than he had in years. Do they know? She asked. No. How long until they do? He didn't answer, because silence was the only truth. Her voice shook. You said I wasn't your prisoner. You're not. Then let me leave. He didn't look away. They'll hunt you. Then what's the difference? She snapped. You lock me in a tower. They chase me through the woods. Either way, I'm not free. Kael stepped closer, and softer this time. I'm not trying to trap you, Elara. I'm trying to give you time, a chance, to learn what you are before they twist it into something you're not. She stared at him, unsure. But then she said, You knew this before you brought me here. I suspected. And you still… What? Want me? His gaze didn't falter. Want isn't the right word. Her breath hitched. Then what is? Kael looked at her like she was the last page in a forgotten prophecy. And then quietly, need. The plan was reckless. No, Elara was reckless. She stood in the center of the war room, spine straight, voice calm, eyes steady. The same girl who once ducked behind marble pillars with a tray of wine now spoke like she was born in blood and storm. I'll go to him, she said. The words hung in the air like bait. Kael didn't move. Neither did Rowan. Mira went stiff in her seat, hand tightening around the edge of the table, but no one interrupted. Not yet. Elara pressed on. Varek wants me. Not Kael's territory, not even his throne. He wants me because I don't fit the rules, because I survived something I shouldn't have. That scares him. That makes him desperate. And desperate men, Mira said, do stupid things. Exactly. Kael's voice came low, quiet, lethal. And you want to put yourself in the jaws of one. I want to bait him. If he thinks I've turned on you, if he thinks I want to make a deal, he'll come, alone, or with few guards, and he'll drop his mask. Kael stepped forward, slow and predatory. You think you understand the rules of wolves, Elara, but you don't. Varek doesn't negotiate, he devours. Elara didn't flinch. Then let him try. He hated this. Every fiber of his being screamed against it. His wolf growled, pacing just beneath the surface, snapping at his bones for even letting the conversation continue. But the worst part wasn't the plan. It was the knowing she was right. She was the only piece left on the board he hadn't played, and Varek would never expect her to move first. Rowan cleared his throat. If we control the location, set the wards ourselves, we can turn it into a cage. Mira glanced at Kael. She'll need protection. Hidden. Close. Kael's jaw worked as he stared at Elara. I'll be there. No, she said. The words stopped him. You can't be seen, Elara continued. If he knows you're close, it falls apart. He needs to think I've walked into that room alone. Kael's silence was worse than rage. And then he spoke. If anything happens, you'll tear the city apart, she said too calmly. I know. He didn't look away from her once. Not when the map was drawn, not when the location was chosen, an abandoned cathedral in Queens, once neutral ground, now crumbling under time and ash, the perfect place for something unholy. They set the trap in 3 days. Elara stood in front of the cathedral steps at midnight, dressed not like a prisoner or a waitress or a queen, but like a storm in skin. Black leather jacket, boots that didn't apologize, a silver knife hidden at her thigh, not because she could use it against Varek, but because she refused to enter that place powerless. Inside, the moon spilled through broken stained glass like judgment. She walked alone, but Kael followed. He waited in the rafters, masked by shadows and old magic. Mira had warded the place 3 hours before the meet. Blood runes that dampened scent, silenced movement. Even his breath didn't stir the dust. And still, the moment Elara entered, his heart stuttered. She moved like a fuse waiting to be lit. Calm, steady, too quiet. And beneath it, something deeper, something wild beginning to wake. Varek arrived late. Of course he did. His footsteps echoed like a dare. No guards, just him, wrapped in shadow and arrogance, wearing a long coat that brushed the floor like smoke. His eyes gleamed red in the dark, old blood magic flickering behind the mask of civility. "Elara Wynn," he said, voice thick with hunger. "The miracle girl." She didn't respond. "You're braver than I expected, or dumber." "Maybe both," he grinned. "Why are you here?" She tilted her head. "You want me. I want to know why." His gaze flicked over her, slow and shameless. "Because you don't belong. Because you're broken in the right way. Because you scare the council, and if something scares them, it belongs to me." She stepped closer. "I don't belong to anyone, yet you stand here alone. You want a deal?" she asked. "Let's deal." Kael's hands curled into fists above them. The wolf inside him was losing patience, snarling, pacing. Every part of him begged to move. But he waited, because this was her moment, and she was flawless. "I'll come with you," Elara said. "No more bloodshed, no more war. You let Kael walk. Let the council deal with him on their own terms." Varek narrowed his eyes. "Why the sudden change of heart?" "Because I saw what he is." "Say it." "A liar, a cage wrapped in a crown. I thought I was safe with him. And now? I know better." Kael didn't breathe, because it sounded real, too real. Varek smiled. "You're smarter than I thought." He reached for her. That was the trigger. The wards shattered under Kael's will as he dropped from the rafters. Claws out, eyes blazing gold. The cathedral trembled with his landing, a crack in the marble under his boots. Varek snarled, stepping back, but Kael was already between them. "You touched her," Kael said. "You lied," Varek spat. "She was bait. You took it." Varek shifted then, fast, violent. Bones cracked, claws sprouted, his form contorting into something twisted and massive. But Kael didn't flinch. He shifted mid-stride, fur erupting along his limbs, fangs bared. They clashed like titans beneath the ruined dome. Elara backed away, heart pounding, blood thrumming in her ears. The fight was thunder and teeth, ancient fury unleashed in sacred ground. Varek was bigger, older, but Kael was faster, controlled. Every strike was precise, every blow calculated. He didn't fight like a wolf, he fought like a king. And when he won, because of course he did, it wasn't with a roar, it was with a whisper. A final bite to the throat, a twist of claws, and then silence. Varek fell, gasping, twitching. Kael stood over him, panting, blood dripping down his chest. Elara stepped forward, voice steady. "Tell the council who betrayed peace." Varek choked. "You think they'll protect you?" "No," she said, "but I'm done hiding." Kael looked at her, eyes wild, breath ragged. "You used yourself as bait. You let me." Their stares locked, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't victory. It was war, just beginning. But they were in it together now. Bloodline and beast, queen and king, hunter and trap. The moon hung heavy that night, bloated and blood-bright. It wasn't natural. It felt like an omen, the kind that made wolves restless and witches whisper beneath their breath. Kael felt it before the call came. Not a phone, not a voice. The bond. It tore through him like a blade made of ice and thunder. His spine locked, breath seized, heart dropped. He was in the middle of a strategy meeting, Mira speaking, Rowan pacing, but none of it mattered, not anymore. She was gone. One heartbeat she was near. The next, she wasn't. And that absence rang louder than a scream. They took her. Elara didn't go quietly. They hadn't expected her to fight. Maybe they thought she was just the girl who'd been bleeding on the floor weeks ago, soft and stunned, wrapped in the Alpha King's protection, but they'd forgotten she was something else now. Not just a symbol, not just a survivor. She was dangerous, but still, there were too many. She woke to stone beneath her back and salt in the air. Somewhere underground, cold, damp, power humming in the bones of the earth. Her wrists were bound in enchanted iron, the kind that didn't just restrict movement, it numbed power. Her blood felt slow, as if it were being lulled to sleep. Candles flickered in a ring around her, runes carved into the stone. A circle drawn in ash, and across from her, Varek, alive, scarred, smiling. "You thought that trap would kill me," he said, voice thick with hate. "You thought he could stop this?" Elara didn't speak. He circled her slowly, like a man who thought he was already king. "You're more important than I imagined," he mused. "That bloodline in your veins, it's not just old, it's sacred, a relic of the time before the council, before order, when wolves ruled by tooth and moonlight." She pulled against the chains. They burned. Varek leaned closer. "And now, I'll use it. Your blood, Elara, is the key to dominion. The packs will kneel, the council will crumble, and Kyle will break when he sees your body as the altar I rose upon." She spat in his face. He struck her. The candles flickered, shadows dancing. Above them, the moon began to pulse. Not light, not warmth, something older. The ritual had begun. Kyle didn't speak as he changed, didn't pause, didn't breathe. He stood at the cliff edge where Mira's spell had pointed, an ancient place beneath the East River, where old tunnels once ran beneath the city, long abandoned, forgotten by most, not by Varek. Kyle's shift was faster than it had ever been, not because of fury, but because of clarity. This wasn't about territory. This was about her. Fur ripped through skin. Bones snapped and reformed. His wolf exploded into the night, black as sin, eyes molten gold, breath steaming with wrath. He ran, and the earth trembled beneath him. Elara's vision blurred. The room smelled like blood and ozone. Her own veins were glowing now, pale silver light tracing through her skin like starlight turned to fire. Varek chanted in a tongue older than stone. His voice wasn't alone. Other wolves stood in the shadows beyond the circle, cloaked, masked, watching. They weren't pack, they were fanatics. The ritual was calling to something, some ancient force older than alphas and kings, and it wanted her blood. A knife hovered above her chest, suspended by spellwork. It glinted in the red glow of the moon. "Let it begin," Varek said. The blade descended, and the world exploded. Kyle shattered through the wall like a god of war. The force of his arrival cracked the stone circle. Candles blew out. Wolves screamed. He landed in full alpha form, twice the size of any ordinary werewolf, his black coat rippling like oil, teeth bared, eyes glowing. Varek turned too slow. Kyle was already on him. Fangs tore into flesh. Claws shredded through the ritual lines. The knife dropped, clattering to the floor inches from Elara's chest. Wolves charged, but Kyle was fire and fury and death. He moved like a weapon forged for a single purpose, her. Elara struggled against her chains. Blood ran down her arms. Sparks flickered in her fingertips. Something inside her woke. The spell tried to smother it. It failed. With a roar, she pulled, and the chains snapped. Silver light erupted from her skin. The circle collapsed. The wolves who touched her burned. Kyle turned, saw her rise. Her hair floated as if underwater. Her veins pulsed with light. She didn't look human. She didn't look wolf. She looked mythic. Varek lunged at her, last desperate blow. She didn't flinch. She caught him, one hand wrapped around his throat, and with a single word, spoken in the ancient tongue she should not have known, she cast him down. He hit the ground and didn't move again. Silence followed. The remaining wolves fled. Kyle shifted back slowly, chest heaving. "Elara." She turned to him, eyes still glowing. And for a breath, he hesitated. Because what stood before him wasn't just the woman who took a bullet for a king. She was something more. A queen. And the moon broke above them, full and pale and perfect. The city did not sleep the night Varric fell. It held its breath. A storm had broken beneath the East River, and the echoes of it rippled out like thunder whispered through stone and bone. Every supernatural ear heard it. Every alpha, every pack, every hidden thing with teeth and secrets. By dawn, the council summoned Kyle, not with command, with caution. They met in the spire, that ancient tower veiled in enchantment, high above Manhattan's skyline, where wolves wore suits and law was carved in glass and shadow. Kyle stood before them, still stained in blood, shoulders squared, his presence coiled and quiet and coiled like a blade waiting to draw itself. Elara entered at his side. No chains, no collar, no apology. She wore midnight, dark leather over clean skin, her eyes still threaded with starlight, her pulse quiet but sovereign. She did not look like a girl pulled from a hospital bed or the shattered floor of a fine dining room. She looked like truth-walking. The council murmured. Elder Thalos did not. He rose slowly, robes brushing the marble as if he was too old for the world he once ruled. "You broke treaty law," he said. "I enforced it," Kyle answered. "Varric used blood magic. He violated ancient bounds. He kidnapped and unclaimed, initiated a ritual without sanction, and spilled wolf blood in a protected site." "She is not Pack," Thalos said. "She is an anomaly. She is mine." The words didn't echo. They hit. But Kyle didn't flinch. He stepped forward, holding Elara's gaze for just a breath before turning to the full assembly. "She is of thorn blood, the line the council tried to erase. Her existence is not an aberration. It is a reckoning." Thalos's jaw tightened. "You cannot claim her without challenge." "I didn't say I would claim her." The silence snapped taut. "I said I would crown her." A collective breath caught. Kyle looked at Elara then, not like a man offering protection, like a man offering power. "She is not a prize. She is a force," he said. "She saved me. She bled for this city. She rose under moonlight and unmade a traitor with nothing but will and blood that remembers its roots. If you won't name her, I will, as Queen of the Nightclaw, by tooth, by vow, by alpha law." Elara didn't speak. She didn't need to. The council hesitated. Because history did. Because they'd buried that name for a reason. But power doesn't stay buried forever, and neither do queens. When they finally bowed, one by one, reluctant and stiff, but bowed nonetheless. It wasn't to Kyle, it was to her, and her name, Elara Thornblood, was etched in the spire's record, lit in flame, bound in oath. They returned to the city that evening, not hidden, not secret. Their convoy passed through Brooklyn, the Bronx, Midtown. Wolves gathered in alleys and on rooftops. Heads bowed, ears flat, their submission low and guttural in the throat. Not one challenged, not one dared. The Alpha King was no longer alone. And New York? It belonged to both of them now. The Argent Room reopened that night, the same chandeliers, the same marble. But new rules, new names. Elara walked through it wearing no uniform, no tray, just steel in her spine and Kyle at her back. The tables were silent as she passed, because power had shifted, and the city felt it. She didn't sit at his side. She sat on her own throne. No one called her Luna. That title was too small now. Queen suited her better. Later, in the quiet dark of Kyle's private chamber, he found her standing by the window, watching the skyline. The moon reflected in her eyes. "You never asked me," she said. Asked what? If I wanted this. He stepped beside her, close but not touching. Do you? She was silent a moment, then, I wanted a quiet life. A job, safety, a name that didn't disappear. You have all of that now? No, she said. I have more. Kyle turned toward her, and the weight in his chest lightened. Because she wasn't afraid. She wasn't waiting to be saved. She was choosing this. I don't want to be yours, she said. He tensed. I want you to be mine. His mouth curled, slow and sharp. Say it. You're mine, Cale Raventhorn. And then he did what no Alpha King had ever done. He bowed his head, to her, not out of weakness, but reverence, because in the end, the Waitress didn't just save the Alpha King. She became something he and all of New York could kneel for. Not a myth, not a weapon, not a throne-warmed mate, a sovereign, a queen.